Alright, so today I released my review of the SQ-100 soldering iron, and I got a bunch of comments telling me about the Ralim firmware is a better firmware for this iron. I have to admit, I wasn't even aware of the Ralim software because I didn't have a TS100, and I really thought to myself, how can the firmware be even better? It's just a soldering iron. Well, after taking a look at the firmware, it's definitely better, and we're going to show how you can update your SQ-100 to the Ralim firmware so you can have all the little settings and adjustments right on the soldering iron without going into that config file and plugging it into your computer and all that kind of stuff. Plus, there's some added features, boost mode, all kinds of nice things. So let's check it out. Of course, the first thing we have to do is go ahead and download the new firmware. So I'm going to drop this link below. You can see it's right up here. And we're going to be upgrading to the 2.12 beta release of the Ralim firmware. You can see there's multiple language packs. I'm going to go down to assets, expand that. I'm going to download the TS100 zip file. After I have that downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and click the zip file. And what I'm going to use is English here, so I'm going to just go ahead and copy. I'll paste that right back under my downloads folder here, and you can see this is the firmware I had from the SQ from the manufacturer's website. So I'm going to go ahead and flash this TS100 English version. So another benefit, if you have multiple languages or a different language other than English, boom, you can see all the language packs that are available in the Ralim open source firmware project for this iron. Okay, as before, we're going to hold down the A button here. I'll go ahead and plug the iron in. Now we'll put it into DFU mode, as you can see right there. We're going to go ahead and copy this hex file and then open up the drive that it's going to add. I'm going to paste it. As soon as you paste it, that's going to power cycle and install the firmware. So you'll see it, the drive letter disappear, and it should come right back up. See, it did there. So it was clicking around. So we're going to go ahead and click on the file. If you see it renamed to RDT, you know you've completed it correctly. From there, we're going to unplug the iron. And that's really it. From here, I'm going to plug it into my battery power. And as you can see on there, we have the updated firmware. Okay, so what's so great about this firmware? Well, let's check it out. So once I first plug this in, you can see the LED screen's a little different here. We actually have a battery indicator here, so that's a nice feature all in itself. But as I mentioned before, you can go right into the settings right here by pressing the B button, and then we can actually power scroll and tell it either we're getting DC power, so that means there's no limit, so it's no lower voltage limit, or we can power cycle into telling it we have a 3S, 4S, 5S, or 6S battery connected. As I mentioned before, I'm using 6S for the maximum voltage to heat up the iron as quickly as possible. What that will do on the 6S setting is it'll have a low voltage cutoff, so I won't be over discharging my 6S batteries here with this. So that's a nice feature, and you can see the low cell cutoff there, right there, 3.3 volts per cell. Even just this nice LED, if you let the setting settle, it will start to auto scroll to give you some additional information there. By pressing the B button again, we can go to solder settings. So we go ahead and enter that menu. And in here, we have a boost mode. So what the boost mode is when I'm soldering, if I hold down the A button, it will actually go up to the whatever I have the boost mode temperature set there, and you can see it was 420, and I can increase that or decrease that right here by pressing this A button here. And I can go up to all the way up to 450. If I hold the button down, then I can go back down to the bottom and cycle back up. So again, when I'm in soldering mode, if I hold this A button down, it will boost up to the 425 degrees Celsius. Next, auto start, just fast. In S0, S, and fast, so we're going to leave that on the F. I actually have to look into what that is, I just left it on F. When I'm pressing the button in solder mode, if I just do a quick press, what's the temperature change going to be? So you can see it was 10 degrees Celsius there. And of course I can change that up to 20, 30, 40, 50. Go to the next setting here. This is if I do a long press of these buttons, what's the temperature going to change? There I have it set to 50 degrees Celsius. Again, I can use this button here to scroll those up. That exits then the solder settings here, so now I can go to the next screen, which is the sleep mode settings. So I'll go ahead and enter that one. So in sleep mode settings, I can set my sleep mode temperature, so whatever temperature I wanted to ramp down that to. I can set my sleep mode time, so if the iron doesn't move for 30 seconds in that setting right there, again, it's going to ramp down to that 210 degrees Celsius, and I can adjust that up to a couple minutes, 30, 40 minutes if I really wanted to. I think it goes down to, let's see, you can see I can go all the way up to a bunch of minute counts, 10 minutes. I can turn it off or go all the way down to 10 seconds. I have it set for 30 seconds. I usually am moving the iron, but if I set it down, I do want it to cool down. It's shut down, so if I'm not using it for 10 minutes, it will completely shut the iron off, and then the only way to get it to turn back on after that is power cycling it, unplugging it, plugging it back in. This is the motion sensitivity, so if you're like bumping your desk and it's making it activate again, you can reduce that motion sensitivity. Default 7, that seemed to work pretty well for me. And that's the end of sleep mode. Going to interface, I can enter that. You can have it in degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. So you can see I can change that easily there. I'll leave it in Celsius. Display orientation, if you're a left hand or right hand person. So I'm gonna leave it on right hand. Cool down blink, I'm actually gonna activate that. So as it's cooling down, it's gonna blink. Scroll speed, so that's the scrolling of this text that you can see right there. Slow seems good to me. Reverse keys, you have a checkbox there to check that or not. I'll leave that go. And that's the end of user interface. Next, we're gonna go to advanced settings. And here we're gonna enter that. Power limit, you can see 5 watts. You can actually set a power limit. So this is a 65 watt iron, I believe, yeah. So you can actually limit it to a lower wattage for some case if you want to do that. Display details at idle. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on so you can see what that looks like. And display details while it's in solder mode. And we'll turn that on as well. Factory reset, do not want to do that. You can calibrate the temperature sensor. You can calibrate the voltage, so you can actually measure the pack voltage and see that it's reading that correctly. You can do a power pulse with the wattage. So that's an option, I guess, to keep it awake if you have it on a DC power source. And modify tip gain. You can change the tip gain there. I don't really know what that is, but that's another setting is there as well. That's the end of the advanced settings. So this is back to the main menu. You can see this is the detailed settings for the idle. You can see what we get there. So I have the tip temperature right here. I have the input voltage, and then I'll go ahead and turn on the iron. Gotta move my hand out of the way. And then you can see the watts drawn, the seconds for idle. So if I go ahead and move, you'll see that jumps back up to 30. And every time I'm not moving it enough, it will jump back down. I have my tip temperature here, and then again the battery voltage. So I can, of course, in solder mode here, I can move my temperature up. I'll move it down. Notice it's jumping by the 10 degrees, where if I hold the button, it goes by 50 degrees increments for long presses. And then this is in solder mode. Again, if I hold my A button here for boost mode, just hold that in. You can see the temperature is going to go up to 420. And if I let that go, it's going to come back down to the set tip temperature. So that's a nice little feature all in itself, just that boost mode. If you're coming into something bigger, you just hold down this button, boost up your temperature a little bit, and then once the solder melts, you got the electronics heated up. A lot of times when you're soldering on the ground of a big flight control board for the leads, you have to heat up a lot of the flight control board itself. You can use that boost mode. Once it gets all warmed up and heated up, then you can just let go of that button. You can see here my timer is almost out, so that's gonna be running down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then this is gonna go into sleep mode, and this is gonna decrease in temperature right here down to the setting that I had it. I think it was at 210 or 200 or something of that nature. Yeah, I had it set to around 210, so it's 210, 211, 212 it's holding it at. It's in sleep mode. If I would let it sit here for 10 minutes, it will just turn off, but I'm not gonna go ahead and do that. If I go ahead and move this around now, wakes it up, timer goes back up to 30 seconds for the countdown, and then you can see here this is warming this back up. Finally, if I want to keep the iron plugged in but I want to turn it off, I can just go ahead and press both buttons here, and that will turn it off. and actually put it into initial startup mode, so this will actually cool down all the way to room temperature here eventually. And then of course, if I want to go ahead and turn it back on, I just go ahead and press this A button at any point in time, and it's going to power it back up to the set temperature, which was reading up here. So you can see power right back up to 300 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that is it for how to update the SQ-100 to the Ralim firmware, which you can see is a lot more features, and believe it or not, you can have better soldering iron firmware. Goes to show, open source for the win. It's not always pay over passion. Again, if you're interested in this iron, links in the video description. Thanks everybody, and I hope this helped.